Hi, and welcome back to Shamama Rising's Birth Journey class. This segment is about the legacy of fear and pain. So, the underlying cultural assumptions of any culture have tremendous influence about how we perceive childbirth, how we experience childbirth, how we think about it. And in the United States, we have this huge underlying assumption that childbirth is dangerous, that it's very painful, and that it needs to happen in a hospital. So, to illustrate this, a cultural anthropologist named Dr. Niles Newton in the early 60s went down to South America to study childbirth in several cultures. And two of them stood out to her. One of them was where everything about women's bodies, sex, childbirth, all of that was shrouded in secrecy and shame. And the knowledge was held by the medicine man, a male. So when they went into having their first baby, they were clueless. They had no idea what to expect. They were completely frightened, and oftentimes they had these long, arduous labors, and many of them would lose consciousness. It was that bad. In a contrasting culture, she found that where childbirth was done in the home, with the kids around, friends, family, everybody was used to the sights and sounds and smells of childbirth and new babies and all of that. And the longest labor she recorded there was 2.5 hours, and that was for twins. So how do these underlying assumptions get perpetuated? How do we get them into our head to where we have the same thinking as everyone else in our culture? Well, a lot of them are perpetuated by women themselves, the mothers. They will tell you, you will find moms who will tell you the horror stories about their birth. The war stories, they're kind of like war stories, and you got to understand these women, many of them have been traumatized, and they need to process this trauma, and they actually need, someone to help them do that. So it's really a good idea to pull back and minimize the exposure that you have to mamas who've been traumatized or had a bad experience. Another way that they're perpetuated in this culture is through TV and film. You'll often see the character who, the yoga, health conscious mama who the minute she wants natural childbirth, but the minute she starts having contractions, they rush her to the hospital and she's screaming for drugs. And the message is that childbirth is so hard that no matter how much you plan for it and how strongly you want it, it's not achievable. So it's really important to understand that these are thoughts that are going into our heads and changing how we view ourselves and our own bodies. And remember that fear and pain are ways to enroll us in our own abdication of power. If we think it's dangerous, if we think it's going to be so painful that we can't handle it, then we buy in willingly into that model of having to go to the hospital and have the medical personnel take care of us, make sure, because they have the tools that can make us have a birth that is pain-free with an epidural. And think about that position you're in. So you're lying in a bed on your back, fetal monitor in place, so you can't really move around because sometimes the fetal monitors are touchy and you have to stay in one position. You got a blood pressure cuff on this side, and you got an IV on this side, maybe even an epidural. And the doctors and nurses are free to walk around. They're the ones with the knowledge. They're the ones that are helping you. So it's really a strong way to get us to abdicate our own power. But we have to realize that there are many different types of pain, and there's pathologic pain, and that's the kind of pain that you use a medicine, a strong medicine, to get rid of the pain or to dampen the pain. An example of that would be having a root canal. You have an anesthesia, and then they go in and they deal with some very painful stuff, and you tend not to feel it too much. Well, that's pathologic pain. It's also surgery. And you'll hear, and I swear, it's often the guys who go, well, you wouldn't have a root canal without anesthesia. And that's actually true. I would not have a root canal without anesthesia. But there are other types of pain. And the pain and intensity of childbearing is part of our body. This is physiologic. Our bodies are actually made to do this, as are all mammals. We're made to do this. So why would it be so awful that we need it anesthetized? There's also another kind of pain, a voluntary kind of pain, and that is athletic pain. The person who is preparing for the Olympics, say in gymnastics or running, who's going to climb Mount Everest, Tour de France, any of those really incredible sports that you have to train very, very hard for. There's a certain amount of pain involved in that. Running a marathon, I mean, you reach a limit where you don't want to go anymore and you have to run past that, and the same with climbing a mountain on a bike or climbing Mount Everest. And you build a team around you that's going to support you in your goal. And there's one person that you're not going to have on that team, and that's the person that says, oh, you know what, don't be a martyr. You don't need to be a martyr. Why are you doing this to yourself? So often you will hear that. Oftentimes you will mention, maybe at a gathering, you'll say, yeah, I'm going to have my baby at home or whatever. Someone will say, oh my gosh, why are you being a martyr? Well, it's interesting that we should think that. We don't say, wow, why is that person climbing Mount Everest? Why are they being a martyr? That's not the first thing that comes to mind. We think, wow, what an accomplishment. How did you do that? So we have to realize there's different types of pain, and also start minimizing, reducing the cultural noise around us, because everyone has an opinion about how you're going to have your baby. So it's really a good idea to start watching films, supported birth, empowered birth, ecstatic birth, orgasmic birth. There's all sorts of films out now about different types of births, and there's amazing photography, Facebook sites now, mother-baby photography of childbirth. Look them up. You just see these amazing images where the mama reaches down and brings her baby up, and she has that first moment where she and the baby see each other, and it is just amazing. Fill your head with those kind of images, because that will start to change those underlying assumptions. It'll replace the fear. It'll replace the fear of pain. So you're training your body, mind, and soul. So first you're going to get those imagery, the imagery changed out. Then you're going to start working on your body. You need to tone your body a little bit. This is kind of an athletic event. So you want to continue any kind of exercise you're used to doing, or start walking, swimming. You can do yoga, and if your knees can handle it, try some squatting. Maybe squatting every day, because a lot of women find that a helpful position during labor and possibly birth. So hopefully you're signed up for hypnobirthing or hypnobabies classes, and part of those classes is learning to tune in, to let everything quiet down and really listen. And it really helps to start listening to your body now, because when you're in labor, your body will inform you what positions are going to support and enhance the natural work of the uterus. Your body you might be uncomfortable on your side, so you'll roll over or you'll get up, you sit up, you kneel, maybe you have a birthing ball. You might want to sway your hips, you might want to walk, you might want to sit on the toilet, sit in a warm tub. Whatever your body tells you, practice listening, because it's a natural guide throughout labor, and it is very helpful. It's helpful if you have people around you who can also help you in case you're sort of submerged and maybe you aren't thinking about moving, and they'll help you move into another position to try out and see if you like it. And so you also want to let go. You want to learn to let go. So you're tuning in and you're learning to let go, and learning to release all your muscles, letting the uterus take over. Visualize the uterus doing its work. And the work of the uterus is the muscles are contracting and pulling away from the cervix, pulling the cervix up and over the baby's head, bunching up the muscles up here and spiraling the baby through the pelvis, navigating through the pelvis and then out into your arms. So you want to visualize that during your labor, and Relax around it so that you can just let the uterus do its work, because oftentimes the pain, and they're kind of like menstrual cramps, huge ones, we often want to go like this around our pain, and that actually can make it a lot worse. So you try to learn to relax around it and let go and let that uterus do the work. So what if we reframed childbirth completely and we saw it as a rite of passage? Think about it for a minute. This is a built into our bodies, rite of passage. And it is a transformation from maiden to mother. That transformation, you know, a lot of vision quests from the Native American, you know, are, you're alone, they're really long, they're really hard, and it's a way to move you from child to adult. Well, this is your built-in transformation from maiden to mother. And it's a heroine's journey. It's tough, and it can be long, and it can be hard, but it is a journey into the wild divine. Also, it can be, you think of your body as a direct connection to the sacred feminine, to the divine feminine. This is huge. So what if our culture reframed all of it and saw birth as this amazing transformation, and we were very lucky to go through it, and people were supportive and they honored it? Wouldn't that be amazing? It would certainly change the underlying assumptions about childbirth. So remember, this is your birth journey. You create a pod of support people around you, and that pod is going to support you in the kind of birth you want. And that pod is a movable pod. It will follow you if you have to pivot and change where you're having your baby or how you're having your baby. It's your sacred pod that goes with you. This is your birth journey. This is your sacred heroine's journey. Make it yours.